A Monday night doubleheader, and we are officially on to week 4 of the NFL season. Pretty exciting week 3 with upsets left and right. One of the weirdest weeks of football I think I can recall watching. But we had a really fun Monday night closer with Cincinnati dropping to 0-3. We'll talk about them. We'll talk about all 32 NFL teams in depth, where I have them ranked in comparison to the rest of the teams in the league. People aren't going to like it. People are going to disagree. But let me know what your power rankings are down in the comment section below. Before we get into it, I do want to apologize for last week's episode. I usually try and get these out at around 1 a.m. Eastern time just to try and be one of the first ones up. And that's been the expectation from you guys for the last 2 years. I kid you not, I had about 6 hours of technical difficulties. Didn't upload it until really late, but hoping that that's not the same issue today. Really excited to get into it. Hopefully we can have the highlights in there again. But looking on to week 4, just a weird NFL season right now. Half the teams in the league, I can't tell if they're good or bad. And the other half are just terrible. So we'll get into that. Before we do, leave a like, subscribe if you are new, and let's go ahead and kick things off with my number 32 team, a new team at the bottom of the league, and it's the Tennessee Titans. I think Tennessee is the worst team in football right now, and this is just a really odd team because I think the defense has played pretty well. Chidobe Awuzie, when he's been on the field, has been good. L'Jarius Sneed has had some ups and downs, but he's been solid. The defensive line has been great. Tavondre Sweat's playing good, but their offense has just been embarrassing, quite honestly, and it starts with the quarterback. We've talked about this for a couple of weeks now. I think after what we saw from Daniel Jones, I think Will Levis has solidified himself as the worst starting quarterback in the league. Back-to-back weeks with some of the most absurd, stupid plays you are ever going to see from the quarterback position. His IQ is not there. The accuracy is still very inconsistent. And I just don't think you're going to win a lot of games with him. On top of that, the offensive line is a complete mess right now. You're either getting like a really good performance or a brutal game. Nicholas Petit-Frere was horrible against Green Bay. And I like this Green Bay team, but that was Malik Willis. And you ran all over. You allowed him to throw on your secondary. This is a guy you traded a 7th-round pick to get rid of, who's now balling out against you in Tennessee. It's a home game against a backup quarterback who you guys gave up on. This is a Tennessee team that I just feel like has no direction. The offensive line's still terrible. Bill Callahan's got a lot of work to do there. And Brian Callahan's got to make a change at quarterback soon. I just don't see this team winning any games anytime soon. Now, that being said, you got Miami next week, who we'll talk about. Very well could be one of the worst teams in football right now as well. We'll get into that, but I know a lot of people aren't going to agree with this, but I just really struggle with this Titans team, and I think they are one of the worst teams in football, if not the worst team. I've got them at number 32 right now. At number 31, it's another AFC South team. It's the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I came into this game with zero hope for this team to beat Buffalo. I came out of this game thinking, oh my gosh, Doug Peterson will probably be fired tomorrow. What an absolute embarrassment for Jacksonville Jaguars fans. I know a lot of Jags fans are in my community, communicate with. As a fan of an AFC South team, I'm a Colts fan. Jags fans are super chill. I really enjoy their fan base, and man, I don't know where to go with this team because on paper, there's a talented roster that I had pretty high hopes for. I thought they would be a borderline playoff team. They blew the big lead early in week 1. You couldn't beat a Browns team that kind of gave you every opportunity to win. And then today, losing by 37 to a Buffalo team where Josh Allen just absolutely cut you up. 6 different players scored a touchdown for that Bills team. The offense was so stale, so stagnant. They cannot run the football. Travis Etienne's their best back, and they keep going to Tank Bigsby because he at least can run over people. But that's the problem. The only reason they have to run over people is because they're not opening up run lanes. The blocking scheme is terrible. Etienne not making plays. Trevor Lawrence is looking worse than he ever has, and I'm a Trevor Lawrence fan. I had high hopes for him. I was like, he's going to come out and prove some people wrong. He did prove people wrong. He proved me wrong because he's been terrible this year, and the offensive line can't protect. There's a very strong case this is the worst team in football right now. I'm just honestly shocked that Jacksonville is this bad right now. Trayvon Walker has been a disaster, and I know Jags fans don't want to hear it. They're like, oh, he's getting sacks. Not really. He's getting sacks off broken plays. He's not creating pressure. The defensive line, which they went all out to upgrade, Eric Armstead, they drafted Mason Smith. They made multiple moves. They're being non-factors. And then Josh Allen's torching the secondary. There's not a single bright spot right now that I could talk about with this Jacksonville team. Brian Thomas Jr. has been good. They aren't targeting him. Get that man the ball. I've liked what we've seen from Britton Strange as well with Evan Ingram out, but just a really, really tough team to watch this week. And I don't know if it's going to get better for this team. I have a lot of worries about Jacksonville, and I think they got to make a coaching change as soon as humanly possible. You love to see the Panthers not at the bottom of the power rankings for the first time since week 1, but they had a really impressive showing in week 3 against the Las Vegas Raiders. As a Bryce Young apologist, maybe this is back-to-back quarterbacks that I tried to defend coming into the year. I was like, I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be good. I think Bryce Young is going to be good. Maybe I should stop doing that because Bryce Young, they bench him, and Andy Dalton comes in, the red rifle, and he absolutely dominates. 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. That's what this team needed. He was awesome in this game with some incredible plays, accuracy down the field. He was getting receivers involved. Xavier Legette was making plays in this game. Deontay Johnson found the end zone. They were able to run the ball a little bit more effectively with Chuba Hubbard. Robert Hunt had an incredible game in this one. And the offense looked like what we thought Dave Canales would make this offense look like. They were moving the ball up and down the field, but you had that play action. You saw some great stuff from Andy Dalton. That's something that encourages you. I still have them as one of the bottom 3 teams in the league because you did beat a Raiders team that had a lot of question marks. Yes, they beat the Ravens last week in a very fluky game. So I'm not all in on Carolina just yet. Like to see it. They're taking on the 0-3 Bengals next week at home. That if they win that game, maybe there's a little bit to be said there. But I was really impressed with what we saw from Andy Dalton. He looks comfortable, composed. Now his team is going to be without Adam Thielen for a couple of weeks, but I was pretty impressed. They get a good win. The fan base seems a little bit alive. It seems rejuvenated, if you will, and a really good win for Carolina. They jump up 2 spots in this week's power rankings. At number 29, we got the New England Patriots. You can make a strong case that they're number 32. I only dropped them down 1 spot. You went up against a Jets team that I think is pretty great. We'll talk about them later, but this is a Patriots team that coming into the day were 1-1. They were viewed as one of these scrappy teams that, maybe can get you. They got a defense that's creating pressure up front with Keon White, and they were horrible on Thursday night. Dropped to 1-2, but it's by far one of the worst losses of the weekend, I think. They were just embarrassed from the beginning of this game. Aaron Rodgers torched the secondary. The defense wasn't able to generate a ton of pressure in this one. And on top of that, I think the offense really showed its limitations. Ramondre Stevenson was pretty horrible in this game. I think he had 3 fantasy points, something that you don't want to see from who's supposed to be your number 1 option. Jacoby Brissett was getting murdered in this game. I mean, the Jets defense looked like the Jets defense again. Jacoby Brissett had no time to throw, and it just seemed like everything that they did was just, they had absolutely no momentum from the beginning of this game. We're never a team that I was particularly high on. I mean, they had a good game against Seattle, ended up beating Cincinnati, but Yeah, I ultimately do have the Patriots dropping a spot to 29. You really wonder when are they going to go to Drake May, because you got San Francisco next week. I would be astonished if they put Drake May in there. I highly doubt that that's going to happen. And then you kind of look, I think it's probably going to be that Dolphins game in a couple of weeks where we finally get to see Drake May inserted into the starting lineup, because Jacoby Brissett showed his limitations on Thursday night. And yeah, this is a Patriots team that I think is going to really struggle. I still do like this defense, though. I think they're scrappy. They play hard. That's really what is giving them the boost over Jacksonville, Carolina, and Tennessee at this moment. At number 28, it is the Las Vegas Raiders, a team that I feel like I'm out on. I just don't really see where the direction of this franchise is going to go. You look at what we saw last week, a really good win against Baltimore. You come back in that game, you feel pretty good about that. And there was some momentum. You're like, okay, this team's got Carolina. That should be a win. Carolina kind of embarrassed them. Now Marcus Epps is out for the season, I believe. He's been a bit of an Iron Man in that secondary that's got so many inconsistencies. Gardner Minshew, I mean, it's weird because Antonio Pierce, I don't think has done a very good job coaching this team, particularly week one. End game management stuff, just not a strength from him. But he's already like talking about benching Gardner Minshew. I don't understand that. Minshew wasn't the problem in this game. They just were overmatched. I thought that they did struggle to move the ball, yes. Devontae Adams is visibly frustrated. I would bet quite a bit of money that he's going to end up on the Jets by the end of the year. Jets need another weapon, and Devontae Adams wants to be out of Vegas. It's never been more clear. And with the emergence of Brock Bowers, I say go for it. I still think you can get a second-round pick for Devontae Adams. I think the Jets do that. I think the Raiders get some more much-needed draft capital, because you're probably going to draft a quarterback in the first round of this draft. You still have major needs at the running back position, because this is one of the worst rushing attacks I have ever seen. And then you can address one of the wide receiver spots. They have some concerns on both sides of the football. Secondary remains a concern for me. The defensive line was okay. It's nothing that is insane, but yeah, I think the Raiders are one of the bottom 5 teams in the league right now. There's just not a lot of positives to say about this team. We talked about Brock Bowers. He's been great, but overall pretty low on the Raiders coming into next week, and I got them at number 28. At number 27, it is the New York Giants, a team that I've been pretty impressed with the last 2 weeks. They were at number 31 last week, and I was like, this was actually a pretty good showing from the Giants, in all honesty. And they come out and have a really, really good game against the Cleveland Browns. Kind of dominate them. The first drive of this game, you fumble the opening kickoff. Cleveland recovers it, scores a touchdown 11 seconds into the game. You felt like, oh boy, the Giants are going to get blown out. But no, Malik Neighbors he's awesome. And he was my wide receiver 3 coming in. He's looked way better than I thought he was going to look. I had concerns about his hands, which he did have a drop in this game, but his hands have been incredible. He has shown the ability to jump up and go get it. He had some unbelievable grabs in this game. The defense, though, was what was really impressive. They were generating pressure. Kayvon Thibodeau had a good game. Brian Burns played well in this game. The offensive line did a pretty good job at protecting Daniel Jones. And Daniel Jones wasn't a liability in this game. Devin Singletary had a good game. Really good show from a Giants offense that you were really wondering, are they going to be any good? Devin Singletary played well, and Malik Neighbors is pretty much everything they're funneling their offense through, and rightfully so, because he's been very, very good. Secondary still has concerns. You're lucky you went up against Deshaun Watson, who can't throw a 3-yard pass, it doesn't seem like. But that being said, really impressed with what we saw from New York. Played pretty well against the Giants just last week. And I think this is a team that could be sneaky competitive. A good game against Dallas coming up on Thursday. I don't think it's going to be a blowout like we've gotten accustomed to. It's a scrappy Giants team. Wouldn't be surprised if they keep that one close. I got the Giants at number 27. At number 26, we got the Miami Dolphins. And Yikes. I mean, the only reason I'm giving them this benefit of the doubt is because if they sign a backup quarterback, I think they can get back into this range because their quarterback play just isn't going to cut it. You're not cutting it with Tim Boyle and Skylar Thompson. That's just not happening. You're not winning football games that way. The defense wasn't particularly bad. They had some blown coverages in the secondary. They kind of held Seattle's offense late in this one. Didn't really get much momentum there late. That being said, this offense was horrendous. We talked about how bad the quarterback play is. I mean, Dolphins fans were losing it on Twitter because of how bad Skylar Thompson was, and he was very, very bad. But you look at the skill positions that this team has, they are a Ryan Tannehill away, elevating a Tyler Huntley, who has been good when he's given starter opportunities. That's Pro Bowler Tyler Huntley. If you get that guy, this is a team that can be sneaky competitive still. They've got a pretty good secondary. They've got skill positions everywhere. Tyreek Hill had nothing in this game, but he didn't have a quarterback that could push the ball up the field. I do still give them the benefit of the doubt over those 6 teams that we've already mentioned because of the weapons that they have. That's really the differentiator for me, is they have weapons that none of those other teams have. And with a Ryan Tannehill, Tyler Huntley, heck, even Bryce Young, like, go make a trade for Bryce Young. Bryce Young's actually perfect for this offense. Make a play. 1 and 2, though, just a pretty ugly loss to Seattle. Got blown out back-to-back weeks and haven't led for a second all season long. They won on a walk-off field goal in week 1, so there was no time on the clock, so they didn't lead that game. Lost week 2, didn't lead for a second in that one, didn't lead for a second against Seattle. Only team in the league to do that. There are concerns here, without a doubt, but I do have them at 26. I'm giving them a slight benefit of the doubt. If they do nothing, they're probably a bottom 3 team in football, though, because they just have no momentum right now whatsoever. At number 25, we have the Denver Broncos. The Broncos were a team that I had at number 30 coming into the week. I had absolutely zero hopes for this team to beat Tampa, a Tampa team that's played pretty well, and they did. This was a really good performance from a Broncos team that we were feeling low on. By far the best game of Bo Nix's young career, and it's not going to show up. Didn't have a throwing touchdown, but he was really accurate with the football, made good decisions. It looked like the Oregon version of Bo Nix, where he's getting the ball out of his hands quickly. He's making good reads. They're getting Cortland Sutton involved in this offense, which is something I was talking about. Was a must need to do for this team. And they looked good. The offensive line gave him time. Really, the big standout for me is going to be the defense. The defense was flying around, creating pressure, forcing turnovers. And Baker Mayfield was really struggling in this game. I get it. Tampa was out there starting right tackle. That being said, this defense still flew all around, was making plays, which you love to see. Denver still does have one of the big question marks to me, and that is who the heck is running the football here? Because Tyler Beatty, that's not going to cut it. They just have a lot of weird pieces. This is a team that I think desperately should make a call to Chicago for Khalil Herbert, because Khalil Herbert's a good back. That's kind of the number 3 right now in Chicago. If I'm Denver, I'm on the phone and I'm like, hey, give us him. We'll give you a 5th, 6th round pick. We just need some stability in the backfield because Javonte Williams does not look good. Tyler Beatty hasn't looked great. They do have some concerns in that running back room, but played really well. Was a really statement win for the Broncos, and hopefully it's a win that can get them back on track. And when you look at their first 2 games, we're in both those games, and you lost to 2 teams that are 3-0. So this is a team that I could definitely see rising the ranks, and they are sitting at my number 25 spot. At number 24, we got the Chicago Bears. People aren't going to pay attention to this game. As a Colts fan, I watched this entire game. And I actually thought the Bears played better than what you're going to see the media talk about. Everyone's going to talk about Caleb Williams and did the Bears make a mistake letting Justin Fields go? Not at all. I think Caleb Williams was awesome in this game against Indianapolis. He was very accurate with the football. He made really good decisions. Now, the 2 interceptions, the first one was a bad throw from him. No doubt about that. The second one, you understand the thinking. He's trying to get it to Rome Odunze. He's got a window, a very tight window, makes a good throw, just bounces off the chest of Odunze into the hands of Jalen Jones, who makes a great interception. Caleb Williams had some really good throws. He showcased that arm talent. The offensive line still didn't do an amazing job for him, but he made plays happen, which you love to see. Defensively, they were great. They were creating pressure, forcing Anthony Richardson to make some bad throws, and he threw 2 ugly interceptions in this game. We'll talk about that here in just a minute. I thought the Bears were pretty good in this game. They're 1-2. I got them at 24. I didn't see any reason to move them up or down. If there was a reason to move them down, it's because DeAndre Swift is a terrible, terrible running back. And I'm sorry. Bears fans try to talk to me this offseason. They're like, well, he's going to be in a really good situation. I get it. He has no vision. I was in an argument today on Twitter. Someone's like, well, how do you expect him to make plays happen with this offensive line? Because of your vision. You look at a guy like Travis Etienne, Breece Hall, Christian McCaffrey. None of those guys are on particularly great offensive lines, but they have the know-it-all to figure out where the holes are going to be opening up so they can hit the holes and bounce it. DeAndre Swift has none of that in that game, in his game, period. He didn't have it in Detroit. It's why they got rid of him. He definitely didn't have it in Philly. Quarter of his yards came in the first 2 weeks of the season. DeAndre Swift isn't good, and they should be going to Roschon Johnson as their number 1 back because he has been fantastic in limited carries. That's the move I'm making if I'm Eberflus. That's the move that I think needs to be done, and we'll see what happens. But I got the Bears sitting at number 24. I thought they had a better week than a lot of people are going to talk about. Another team I'm all the way out on, joining the Raiders, are the Cleveland Browns. The Browns were a team that I did pick to be one of these borderline playoff teams, similar to Jacksonville. And unlike Jacksonville, who I think has a chance to turn it around with a coaching change, I don't think Cleveland's got a chance to turn this thing around. Got off to a red-hot start, as we talked about. You force a fumble on the kick return, and then you score first play. 7-0. Their offense was terrible the rest of this game. You get some good Amari Cooper plays. Great. 2 touchdowns for Amari Cooper in this one. Deshaun Watson, it might be time. I mean, I know Browns fans don't want to do it. I think I'm mocking them a quarterback in my mocks this week. I really do, because I just think it's time. Deshaun Watson's looked terrible. Decision-making isn't there. The accuracy is all over the place. You look at a guy like really anybody. I think Jameis Winston should be starting for this team right now. I think he gives them a better chance to win. He's more confident with the football. Deshaun Watson has no confidence in the pocket. This offensive line has been terrible for them. And the defense has taken a massive step back, just not creating pressure like they have. Myles Garrett's been banged up, which you really hate to see. And yeah, this is a team that I had in my top 10. I thought they looked pretty solid. I'm out on this team. They've looked pretty average for 3 straight weeks, get blown out by Dallas. You lose to a bad Giants team, and you let Jacksonville hang around for way longer than they should have. Really, really tough thing here for Cleveland fans. And I got the Browns at 23. Been very disappointed with the season they've had thus far. My Indianapolis Colts jump up 1 spot, and I'm not really going to rant like I did last week. Good win. Good tough win down the stretch. I thought the defense played much, much better. No DeForest Buckner, but they looked solid. They were able to stop the run. Now, how much of that is DeAndre Swift's poor vision and how much of it's the defense? We'll say both. I think the big thing, Jalen Jones, 2 interceptions, had a really good day in coverage. That's something you needed to see because this is a secondary that's banged up with Juju Brent's out. You needed to see a superstar emerge. Jalen Jones had a really good game. The other thing you wanted to see was Latu really take that step. He was creating pressure in this game. He only had 1 sack, the forced fumble late in the fourth quarter, but he was creating pressure all day long. That was promising. The offense looked okay. I'll say that. I think Jonathan Taylor looks fast. That's something that you really feel good about. His speed was really good, had a really good run on the touchdown. His ability to bounce things to the outside is promising. Anthony Richardson, right now, I'm not out on Anthony Richardson. Don't take this the wrong way, but I'm getting there. Some just really, really routine throws that he's missing. I understand. I know the argument. He's a 22-year-old quarterback, given time. I'm letting it go to the season. I'm not writing him off because he can make throws that 99.9% of players can't make. But he can't make throws that 99.9% of players can make. And that's the problem. He's got to be more consistent. Two really ugly interceptions in this game, like some of the worst interceptions you're going to see all year. Just bad decision making. He gets too excited. He said it himself, and he just tries to put too much on it. I definitely think he can clean it up. I think there's potential still there, but you got to see it improve. Alec Pierce making plays happen again, and having Josh Downs back was huge. They do jump up a spot. Nothing that really screamed like, yes, this is it. But I do have them jumping up to the number 22 spot. At number 21, it's the 0-3 Bengals, who probably have no shot at the playoffs at this point. I know that sounds harsh because the AFC is brutal right now, but you can't start 0-3, not in that division. We talked about Cleveland, who I'm kind of writing off, but Cleveland has given Cincinnati hell for the last 3 years. This is a Bengals team that I really don't know what the problem is because the defense, yes, they were banged up today, had some injuries on their front, but I don't think the defense is playing bad. Secondary is playing good. Cam Taylor-Britt's having a pretty good year. Not in the media. He's been pretty terrible. Back-to-back, just bad quotes. I think they should take away his media availability this week, saying they were playing a high school or a college offense in Washington. Joe Burrow's looking really good. I mean, he was awesome tonight. Really accurate with the football, putting the ball on a string. You get T. Higgins back. I think the offense looks really, really good. That's the weird thing because Yoshivas, it looks like a player for them. Mike Gesicki and Eric all have been great tight ends. You look at the running back room, I really like what we've seen from both Zach Moss and Chase Brown. What's the issue? I really can't pinpoint an issue with this team. Week 1, I was like, okay, we'll let it slide. Week 2, the refs kind of screw them over. Tonight, I really don't have an excuse. That was a game they had to win, and they dropped 7 spots. Now, I know everyone's like, how are they still this high? They're still a good football team. They're playing good football right now. They just haven't been able to put a win in the win column, and that could really hurt. This is a game I think you had to have at home against a Washington team that we expected was going to be an inferior opponent, and that just didn't happen. So I got the Bengals at number 21, and I really don't know what the issue is right now. It might be coaching. It might be time to let Zach Taylor go. At number 20, I got the Arizona Cardinals, who had a really weird week. That's really all I can say. I watched quite a bit of this game. This was one of my most anticipated games of the week, Arizona and Detroit. And this was a game that I think they had every opportunity to win. Granted, the refs did them wrong by blowing the whistle on a touchdown that was a interception at the end of the 2-minute warning where it was pretty clear Detroit took the snap before. Just a really weird play that just didn't end up. The refs blew it dead. Dennis Gardeck had another good game. I thought the secondary played really strong. Defense did its job. The offense was really weird because they weren't able to run the ball particularly well. Kyler Murray was very inconsistent in this game. I mean, it was 3rd and long, 2nd and long, and it just felt like he kept forcing it to Marvin Harrison. Now, if you're going to force it to anybody, Marv had another incredible game, but it just felt like there were some bad throws in there that, okay, Kyler wasn't making those throws last week. A little bit of just inconsistency all over. You got to see that get cleaned up, but I thought they played fine. Didn't see a reason to drop them down. You're playing a really good Lions team. The offense definitely showed its flashes. You saw some moments there with Michael Wilson and Trey McBride. The defense played well. The offense didn't have quite as great of a game. And I think that's good enough to stay at number 20. So that's where I got him right now. Don't really see another reason to move him up or down. At number 19, we got the Washington Commanders. Now, in the 3 years I've done power rankings, I'm sorry, Washington fans. I don't know if I've ever had them this high. Admittedly, I don't know if I've ever had the Commanders this high in my power rankings. This team's good, man. They're really good. And they were a team that I was like, okay, I wanted to pick them as a potential sleeper because I think they did make my sleeper list. I wanted to pick them as a playoff team, but the NFC is good. I think the NFC is just as good as the AFC in all honesty when you look at it. But I liked Arizona better. I liked all of the NFC West teams better. I thought that they were going to be second in this division. I thought they would have been like a 6-7 win team. And that may very well may be the case. But with the way Jaden Daniels is playing right now, I mean, I don't know if they could win the division. That's all I want to say. They're looking just as good as the Eagles are through 3 weeks, who, yes, we do have higher, but we'll get to them. And you still got to play a role into team, just history. That does play a factor here. But Washington, coming into tonight, you were favored to lose. You're going up against a really good Cincinnati team. Rookie quarterback on the road, first primetime game. Jaden Daniels had one of the best quarterback performances I've ever seen. And that's not an overstatement. Rushing touchdown, 2 passing touchdowns. Incredible accuracy. 92% accuracy. You just don't see that. And this is a rookie, by the way. They got Terry McLaurin involved, which I was begging them to do for fantasy purposes, but also because Terry McLaurin is clearly your best weapon. And they did it. Terry McLaurin had an awesome game, which you love to see. The defense did its job. The offensive line played really, really well. Eckler and Brian Robinson as that duo. And it's like all of a sudden we're like, wait, is Washington good now? Did they actually build something? Because if they did, boy, oh boy, you might have a piece here. And that's really exciting if you are a Commanders fan. A huge win from them. Yes, I still have them as third in the division, but this could change in a snap. Really, really impressed with what we saw from this team. The defense, I wasn't wowed by. You went up against a good Bengals offense. I mean, they allow almost 35 points, I think. So that's not ideal, but if your offense is going to play like that, I don't know how much it matters. They didn't punt the ball once tonight. One of, I believe, 2 teams that jump up despite a loss are the Atlanta Falcons. I thought Atlanta played pretty well in this game. I will say play calling down the stretch was a utter disaster for this team, but I mean, there's not much you can do. I got him at number 18. I'm really, really impressed with Kirk Cousins, though. He looks like Kirk Cousins again. The accuracy is back. He looks more comfortable moving around in the pocket. The play action stuff is working. We're getting really good stuff from Drake London. Kyle Pitts had a big play in this game. That's all really exciting. You obviously got your 1-2 punch in the backfield. Now there's some concerns about the injuries. Drew Dahlman goes down in this game. Caleb McGarry goes down in this game. 2 starting offensive linemen. Those could be pretty big losses for you if they don't come back. I do ultimately believe they'll be fine, but it is definitely something to take note of. This is a good team. I thought the defense played okay. Secondary, I still have concerns about CB2. And I still have concerns about the pass rush. They just weren't able to make Patrick Mahomes really feel any pressure all game long. And that's just not going to fly. So you got to be able to do that. You got to make plays up front. But I thought the offense was really solid. I think they're doing a good job. I got them at 1-2, or I got them at number 18. 1-2 record. Very easily could be 0-3. Also very easily could be 3-0. So good stuff from them, and I got them at number 18. At number 17, just when we thought it might be time to write the Rams off, and it's like, okay, like, unfortunately, they're just going to be that team from hell this year that just can't get out of their own way. Too many injuries, and then we get a vintage McVay and Stafford game that just reels you back in and makes you really excited. I mean, I don't even know half the guys Stafford's throwing to in this game. Colby Parkinson, I don't even think he played, if I'm being honest. You got Jordan Whittington out there Xavier Scott, Tutu Atwell, so many just different names, and it didn't really matter. He cut their defense apart in San Francisco. Kyron Williams with the hat trick, and they get a win, a walk-off win against a banged-up Niners team, but a win nonetheless. And this is a team that would have been 0-3, pulls off a huge win after just getting embarrassed by the Cardinals. And that's something that I think you feel really confident about going into next week. You got that first win under your belt. Stafford's playing at a near MVP level right now. He's playing better than just about any quarterback in the league right now. And he's looking great. Doesn't look like Cooper Kupp will be back for next week, but overall was a good win for this team. Defense came up clutch in big moments for them. You got to make some moves in the secondary. They did get torched a couple times by Jawan Jennings, and the deep ball has not been friendly to them this year. But I'm a fan of what this Rams team is doing. They've been scrappy, and they were right in it with the Lions in week 1. Pull off a big win against San Francisco in week 3. I got them at number 17. Dropping 7 spots for me are the Dallas Cowboys. And just, I thought that they were going to pull off the upset. And maybe that's the reason why people are going to be upset that I have them dropping so low. That's probably the reason why, is because they did pull off a great comeback. You shouldn't have. It's still an ugly loss because you should not have ever been down 28-6 to this Ravens team. You just allow them to run the football all over you. Dak doesn't look good for 3 quarters of this game, and they finally come alive in the 4th. I just don't know what happened. I think Mike McCarthy, if they lose Thursday night to the Giants, Mike McCarthy's gone. I have no doubt in my mind that Mike McCarthy will get fired after that game if they do lose, which I'm not writing it off. I definitely think it's possible with what we've seen so far. The defense has been good. They were good in the second half of this game. I don't think they've been great. And offensively, they're just too one-dimensional. No one is scared of their rushing attack at all. No one's scared of Zeke. No one's scared of Deuce Vaughn. We're just not scared of this team. And so you can pretty much double CeeDee Lamb, make Jalen Tolbert beat you. He had a good game. That's what this team is right now. They feel very predictable. You kind of know what they're going to do before they do it. And that makes them a really tough team or a really easy team to beat. Still got them at 16, though, because the personnel's there. They have been competitive in most of their games. You obviously got beat brutally by the Saints, but you were right in it with the Ravens late. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully they're able to turn it around for the sake of Dallas fans. But I do have this team at number 16. I think they're dead in the middle of the league right now, and we'll see if they're able to jump up next week. At number 15, I got the Los Angeles Chargers, a team that I thought had a real chance to win this game against the Steelers. Just wasn't able to. Really, the only reason I don't have them moving up or down is just injuries. Herbert goes down in this game. Rashawn Slater goes down in this game. Derwin James is now suspended for next week, which that one probably hurts. We knew Herbert was banged up coming into the week. He gets hurt. Joe Alt is now out. He's week to week, I think. Just so many injuries in this one. We're really close for 3 quarters in this one. Then the Steelers kind of pulled away late, and Taylor Heineke wasn't able to really get it going. But I thought this was a good showing from them. This is a really scrappy team. Defense definitely showed some cracks in it, which you definitely don't want to see. Defense that was towards the top of the league coming into this week. Had its worst week yet against a Steelers team that we'll talk about in just a little bit. But, yeah, I don't really see a reason to move them down. Didn't have a brutal loss or anything. I got them staying where they're at, and they're at number 15 this week. The other team that went up despite a loss this week was the New Orleans Saints. Now, a common comment that I got last week was, oh my gosh, how do you have the Saints at number 16? I was like, I need to see a little bit more from this team before I really commit. And They did show me a little bit that I'm kind of buying in a little bit more, but they also definitely have some areas to grow. Offensively, very stagnant. This is a vintage Derek Carr stinker. Didn't have a good game. Rashid Shaheed had 0 catches in this game. He did nothing. So that's the first thing where you're like, okay, the offense isn't making things happen. We'll see what they can do. Defensively, however, they were very good. Was forcing the ball out of Jalen Hurts' hands, forcing bad decisions. Allowed some big plays, though, and that was kind of the difference maker in this game. They allowed a 60-yard play late in this game to Dallas Goedert. You obviously allowed the 60-yard touchdown to Saquon Barkley in this game, which you didn't want to see that one either. It's really the big plays that hurt them, but I thought they were good. I thought they were creating pressure. Brian Brzee, he made a few splash plays in this game. I thought the defense was good. Offensively, you want to see them be a little bit better than what we saw this week. I definitely think they can be. I got them at number 14. I think they're a fine team right now that's definitely got the upside to be a top 10 team still based on what we've seen up to this point. At number 13, I got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, last week, people were mad at me that I had them at the number 12 spot. And I had probably 20 comments, people complaining, why are the Bucs so low? Most people have them in the top 5. I don't care what other people have. I really don't. This is my rankings, and that's the way it is. However, there is a case to be made. They beat a good Lions team. They looked really dominant through the first 2 weeks. This was why I didn't want to fully commit. They really put up a stinker against the Broncos. The Broncos were generating all kinds of pass rush against them. Yes, their right tackle was missing, but just a bad Baker Mayfield game. Inaccurate with the football, making bad reads, bad decisions. They weren't able to really run the ball. Bucky Irving should be running back 1, and it shouldn't be debatable at this point because I think Rachaad White's a basic liability as a runner right now, and Bucky Irving looks fantastic. Defensively, they were okay. They weren't what we saw last week, but they weren't bad. You definitely want to see a little bit more, but I mean, they only dropped 1 spot for me. It wasn't anything significant, but definitely something where it's a little bit of a scare because you got to see Baker Mayfield be a little bit better than he was yesterday. Granted, once you get Luke Gedeke back in there, I think you should be, but I have the Bucs at number 13. Yes, they won, but I'm not impressed with the Ravens. I got them at 12 because they definitely showed some stuff offensively that we hadn't seen. It's a miracle. Who would have thought that giving the ball to Derrick Henry would be a good idea? I mean, that's why you brought him in, right? Derrick Henry looked awesome against Dallas. It was finally the first game where it's like, okay, finally this team's giving him touches. Mark Andrews was nowhere to be found, and that's about it. That's kind of the story of this offense. You're getting one good performance from one player a week, and no one else is going to show up. And that's kind of what we've seen thus far. That being said, I think defensively, I have major concerns. Coaching-wise, I have massive concerns. You're up 28-6, and you almost blow another lead. How are you letting this happen? This is honestly a joke at this point, right? There's no way the Ravens cannot close games like this. And that's why I have them dropping. Because if it's a close game, I don't think Baltimore's ever going to win them. I mean, yes, they blew a big lead to Vegas last week, nearly blew it to Dallas this week. You barely lost to Kansas City. I get that. It's still a loss. There's just a lot of concerns I have with this Ravens team. Defensively, they're all over the place. They just haven't really seemed to find that identity we saw from them last year. And offensively, like I talked about, I'm not moved by their skill positions or their weapons at all. Lamar's having a down year, and while he had a good game, something I'm not really impressed with right now. I got the Ravens at 12, and I know people are going to be mad at me for dropping them despite a win, but there are just teams that are playing better than them. And if you can't close a game, I have major concerns. So I got the Ravens at number 12. I finally saw what I wanted to see from the Seattle team to move them up. They'd kind of been stuck at that number 21 spot, but they jump up 10 spots to number 11 this week. The defense is just playing really, really good football. Derek Hall had an awesome game. A guy a lot of people thought was overdrafted in the second round from Auburn. Another second round pick that we thought was overdrafted, Zach Charbonnet. He's been fantastic for them this year as that receiving back, making plays as a blocker and stepping in for an injured Kenneth Walker, playing really well for this Seattle team. Geno playing really good football as well. The accuracy's there. DK Metcalf getting some of these deep shots that you love to see it. The offensive line still looks pretty horrible, especially on the interior. Definitely a decision that they're definitely going to have to upgrade in that department. But I'm loving what we're seeing from this defense. Mike McDonald's coming over. They're making plays happen. Devon Witherspoon's playing great. Reek Woolen is playing like one of the best players in all of football. And you're getting really good play from the rookie up front and Byron Murphy. That's what you wanted to see from this Seahawks defense. And they're 3-0. Now you could talk about, okay, well, they beat the Patriots in overtime. They beat the Broncos barely. And they beat a bad Dolphins team. Yeah, they haven't beat great teams, but they're playing good team football. Both sides of the ball doing their part. They're creating pass rush. They're generating pressure on all phases from multiple different guys, whether that's Boye Mafe, Byron Murphy, Derek Hall. We haven't even seen Uchenna Nwosu yet for this team. And I'm impressed with what we've seen from their defense. Now, their first real test of the week or of the season is going to come next Monday night against Detroit. But I think they're playing good football right now, and I got them at number 11, borderline a top 10 team. Just want to see a little bit more against a better opponent. Speaking of wanting to see more against better opponents, I do have the Pittsburgh Steelers at number 10. They do jump up 8 spots. I had them at number 18, just kind of stuck in there. People are talking very highly of Justin Fields. He's playing fine. He's doing the bare minimum for this team. I think one of his better games of his career, yes, it was yesterday against the Chargers because he was actually throwing in the middle of the field. Made a couple of big plays. A lot of it was yard after catch. Look, this offense is not good, and they're not making anything happen offensively. You could talk about it. You could talk about, oh, he's got 3 touchdowns on the year compared to Caleb Williams 1. Who cares? He's in one of the easiest offenses to work at right now because they're literally just asking him to do the bare minimum. And it's working because their defense is playing out of their minds. They're just generating pressure. Secondary is playing tough and physical. And if you're getting big plays from George Pickens or Calvin Austin, then fine. They're 3-0. And we talk about teams that just haven't played anyone good. The Steelers kind of, you could argue, are in that range. You beat up a Chargers team that had 5 starters go down throughout this game. You beat a Falcons team and Kirk Cousins' first game. And you beat a Broncos team that we still don't really know what to make of them. I still think they're playing good. I think this defense is great. TJ Watt's probably second right now in Defensive Player of the Year voting behind Aiden Hutchinson. But, yeah, their defense is keeping them alive. And for the first time, I got the Steelers as a top 10 team in football right now because I am really, really moved by what their defense is doing. At number 9, dropping 7 spots for me, it's going to be the Houston Texans. Houston, I talked about it last week, really disappointed me. Despite being my number 2 team last week, their offense just didn't look good against Chicago last week. And there were concerns about, okay, what is going on with this offense? It just doesn't look the same. And this week, it looked even worse. They went up against a really good Vikings defense that's just blitzing on all fronts, and they're making all sorts of stuff happen. But just their offense didn't look the same. Are we seeing the C.J. Stroud sophomore slump? I think it could be possible. Obviously, you're without Joe Mixon in this game. Defensively, couldn't really make anything happen. This is kind of a weird team. They got a tough schedule, and if they don't get this fixed out, I mean, in their defense, they're in the easiest division in the league right now, it would appear, because the Jags and Titans are my bottom 2 teams, and the Colts I have at 22, who they've already beaten. So they do have a very easy schedule in that regard, but outside of those games, like, There's not a lot there. So they'll probably win this division, but are they an elite team like they were last year or like everyone had expectations for? I'm not sure right now. We saw a really good defensive performance in week 2. Didn't see that same defense in week 3 or in week 1. So we'll see what happens. I got them at number 9. They're still a top 10 team for me, but definitely some question marks in Houston, and we got to see this offense get back on track. At number 8, I got the Green Bay Packers. People said I was crazy for keeping the Packers up in this range because I was like, okay, well, they've still got a talented roster. We'll see what they make happen at quarterback. I think they'll sign Ryan Tannehill. And they rolled with Malik Willis, and Malik Willis has looked really sharp in back-to-back weeks. Had an awesome game against Tennessee. Great decision-making, accurate with the football, and making plays happen with his legs. Matt LaFleur looks like a genius right now for what he's doing. And you probably get Jordan Love back next week. So this is really exciting stuff if you're a Packers fan, that you've now won 2 games without your starting quarterback. And you've looked good. They're able to run the ball effectively. The defense is playing great. Jair Alexander with the pick 6. Xavier McKinney, 3 games, 3 interceptions. You love to see that. Defense is playing good with under Jeff Hafley, which you love to see. And then offensively, they're running the ball well. The receivers are making plays. I don't think we've seen the full extent of this offense because we really haven't seen Malik Willis push it down the field yet. When you get Jordan Love back, this offense could be one of the best offenses in football. And with the defense playing this well, there's a reason I picked the Packers to win the Super Bowl this year. And right now, they're playing just as good as any team in the NFC. I got Green Bay at number 8. At number 7, I got the San Francisco 49ers. They just have injuries everywhere. Kittle was out. Debo was out. McCaffrey's out. Hargrave tears his tricep. He's out for the season now. Trent Williams gets banged up in this game. They just had injuries everywhere. Jawan Jennings, Brandon Ayuk, neither of them really got it going in this, or Jawan Jennings did, misspoke. Ayuk didn't really get it going, and they just blew a lead to the Rams. Yeah, there's some concern there with San Francisco because is this the team from hell team that just can't really seem to stay healthy? They're just getting banged up on both sides of the football. Maybe. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that they're that team this year, but I'd have them dropping down 4. I think they've been fine. They've been very competitive in each of the last 2 games they've played, just haven't been able to close. I still think they're borderline top 5 team in the league, despite 2 back-to-back losses against solid opponents. The Rams are at 17, but they've always given the 49ers problems. So we'll see what happens. I got the Niners at number 7. I really think it comes down to injuries. And once this team gets healthy, we know how good San Francisco really is. At number 6, staying the same for me as the Philadelphia Eagles, and they've just got to be thanking God that they signed Saquon Barkley, because without him, this team would be 0-3 pretty easily, I think. Carried them in Brazil against Green Bay, carried them yesterday against New Orleans. I mean, he's their whole offense, in all honesty. They don't have anybody that I trust to make plays happen. Devonta Smith goes down. Jalen Hurts just doesn't look good, period. He just hasn't looked like himself. Jalen Carter had an incredible game on the defensive front for them. Defensively, they had their best showing of the year against a really good Saints offense coming into the week. The Eagles kind of shut them down. So that's something you feel pretty confident about if you're going into next week. Vic Fangio made some really nice adjustments. But Jalen Hurts, just bad turnovers, bad decisions. Just doesn't look like the same player that led this team in the Super Bowl just 2 years ago. Looks very different. This is a team that if they had lost yesterday, I think Sirianni would be on the hot seat. They do win. They barely win, which is why they don't move up, because I don't think it was like a statement win for the Eagles. But really great game from Saquon Barkley yet again. I think he had 150 yards, 60-yard touchdown. He's awesome. He's probably going to win Offensive Player of the Year at this rate. He looks incredible. I got the Eagles staying at number 6. The Jets are a top 5 team. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear it. Aaron Rodgers is back. He is all the way back. And I was blown away from his performance on Thursday night. The accuracy, the ability to move around. That was something we had talked about. We were like, okay, Aaron Rodgers can't move around in the pocket like we saw. And what does he do? He comes out and is moving on the opening drive, running for first down, scrambling, throwing off his back foot like we'd seen. We're like, Aaron Rodgers is back. And he looked awesome. The touchdown to Garrett Wilson was vintage Rodgers. Alan Lazard's getting it going. The offense did everything perfectly. The O-line was great. The rushing attack was great. They got Mike Williams involved. Great stuff from the offense. Defensively was where I honestly had more concerns than with the offense because they weren't able to generate a ton of pressure either of the last 2 weeks. Will McDonald looked horrible week 1, and now I think he's got 5 sacks. He's looked great the last couple of weeks. The secondary is playing incredible. Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed, when they're healthy, one of the best cornerback duo in football. The defensive line, Quinnen Williams had that game again that we wanted to see from him. Everything went right. And you could talk about, it's against a bad Patriots team. That's a Patriots team that we talked about. They were scrappy. They were in both the games, and they embarrassed them. And now I look at this Jets team and the way Aaron Rodgers is playing, and I'm like, yeah, this team could contend for a Super Bowl this year. With how the rest of the AFC is shaping up, this Jets team has just as good a chance as anybody right now through 3 weeks to be one of those teams playing for the Lombardi. I got them at number 5. I thought they were fantastic on Thursday night, and I just think it's going to get better from here. At number 4, we got the Detroit Lions, and the Lions are 2-1, and I don't really feel great about them being at number 4. I feel like this team is, I don't know. I mean, they lost to Tampa. Yesterday was one of the weirdest games I can recall seeing from the Lions because they really didn't look good at all. You had the nice hook and ladder play, and you were able to get a little bit going on the ground, but the offense doesn't look like it did last year. They don't look as explosive. They're not making big plays happen in the middle of the field like we saw last year. Defensively, I thought they were great. I mean, they were everywhere. Carlton Davis had an incredible game. Aiden Hutchinson continuing to be unbelievable. And they played good. Marcus Davenport goes down. That's a really big loss for them. I definitely think they should be in the trade market if it's possible. But they're not. They're 2-1. And I don't love it. I really don't. There's something missing with this Lions team. I said it with the Eagles last year, and I continued to keep the Eagles highly ranked until they fell off. There's something missing with this Lions team, and I can't quite put my finger on it. But they just haven't looked like the same team. Jared Goff doesn't look like with the Jared Goff we saw last year. The offense doesn't look the same, and I got some concerns. They're still at number 4. They pull off a win. Nothing to really justify moving them up or down, but they are staying put. The biggest jump in the history of my power rankings are the Minnesota Vikings going to number 3 from number 17. I'm blown away. I'm just shocked at just how incredible this team has been through the first 3 weeks of the year. And I'm not even going to start with Sam Darnold. We're starting with the defense because Brian Flores is a mastermind defensively, blitzing more than any team in the league. They're bringing pressure from everywhere. Jonathan Grenard has a huge statement against his old team. Andrew Van Ginkel's playing incredible football. Those are both pieces that you sign in the offseason that you feel really, really good about. And they're playing great. The defense is playing really, really good. You're getting great stuff from Blake Cashman. You're getting really good stuff from the secondary. And then offensively, Sam Darnold's playing at a near MVP level that you feel very confident with. Justin Jefferson's doing his thing. You didn't have Jordan Addison. You didn't have TJ Hawkinson. It doesn't matter. This team's playing so good on both sides of the ball. Sam Darnold looks incredible. And this is a guy I had on my breakout watch. I'm like, don't be surprised if he's like really good for the Vikings this year. He's got a coordinator that knows how to use him. And when we've seen him in a Shanahan-style offense, you look at what he did in Carolina, you look at what he did in San Francisco in limited snaps. This is a talented quarterback that's got tools. and they're winning football games. This Vikings team looks awesome, and I got them at number 3. And number 2, it's the Buffalo Bills. I mean, what a statement win against Jacksonville. We thought they had a big win against Miami last week, an even bigger one this week. A Bills team that had so many questions coming into the year. I think they've answered them all. Von Miller looks healthy. You feel good about your edge rush room. You feel good about the weapons. I mean, 6 different players scored a touchdown tonight for Buffalo. Keon Coleman got involved. Khalil Shakir looks good. Dalton Kincaid. And then Josh Allen is the MVP of the league right now. He is playing out of his mind on both the air and the ground. I still don't think he's thrown an interception yet this year. He's been very accurate, very smart. This Buffalo team is very legit on both sides of the football. They are looking better than they ever have. They are number 2 in the league right now. And then at number 1, it's the Chiefs. I don't know what else I got to say. They find ways to win these games time and time and time again. And I've said it for the last 3 weeks, but until they manage to lose the game, they will not be dropping from the number 1 spot. Rashee Rice is playing better than any wide receiver in football right now, to be quite honest. I don't know if there's a receiver I've taken over him right now other than Justin Jefferson. Rashee Rice looks incredible. Travis Kelce looks terrible, and it doesn't even matter. They're still winning games. The defense doing a pretty solid job. Leo Chenal's playing good. Linebackers looking good. I mean, Patrick Mahomes hasn't even looked great this year, and they're 3-0. So this is probably the worst they're going to be, and that's scary for the rest of the league. That's going to do it for me in this episode, guys. Let me know what you guys think. Who do you guys think I'm too high on? Who do you think I'm too low on? Let me know down in the comment section. Leave a like, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.